So NYAFF is 18 years old this year, right?
Yeah, is that right? So we're going to our 19th year, yes?
19th
Yes,
next
yes,
year.
correct.
So it has experienced a lot of changes over the years. So how does NYAFF's taste in Chinese language films change over the years?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the changes is because the cinema itself is changing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think over the history of NYAFF. So, for example, I think you and I spoke the other day about, was it you and I spoke about a film called Peacock?
Yeah, we did.
I think I saw Peacock at NYAFF in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And wait, now I'm trying to remember, that's a film that's about the Cultural Revolution, correct?
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how, to be honest, I don't know how that film was perceived or what kind of, in China, or what kind of reputation it has. I know.
It's more like an art house film in China.
Okay, because I know here it was seen and even able to have been released on video. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But that's probably it's interesting to say there's art house. So that means somehow maybe something that was more independent was somehow available to the programmers at the time, or I don't know what. But I think maybe here it's perceived as. I guess there was a lot of films that were seen here that were about the Cultural Revolution over the years.
Mm-hmm. So it's this topic that interests you?
No, it wasn't necessarily the topic. I think the film was just a good film, an interesting film. It's an ensemble story, right? It's been a while, so I don't remember exactly what happens, but it's a bunch of different characters, right?
Yeah, it's a story about 3 family members, like 3
Right.
siblings. Yeah.
So anyway, I think there was less Chinese, mainland Chinese films being shown in NYAFF because maybe there was less available. I know later on there was that movie with, what's his name, Hong Bo, The Cow. Wasn't it called The Cow? That was a NYAFF film. And he's in a village and he has a cow. It's a really weird, funny comedy. And then anyway, my point is that as the cinema was evolving, I guess more became available to NYAFF. So the tastes are probably just changing in proportion, in conjunction with what there is. And the cinema is changing. As far as I can tell, it's developing more and more. And there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, so like in one of the interviews of the founder of NYAFF, Gordon Hendricks, years ago, he talks about, and I'm going to quote him, boring art film about lonely Chinese people eating mud and being exploited by the state. He says that these kind of Chinese films are more popular in the West than more entertaining mainstream Chinese films that are your festival showcase.
Okay.
Do you think this is like the case of the NYAFF?
Okay, so sure. So I have a maybe a long-winded answer for that. So I remember what I used to write about film, and I would often write about NYAFF. And there was one year I was writing about it when it was still happening at Anthology Film Archives. And I remember what I wrote in my review was exactly that they were going after more mainstream, more pop culture type films in general, not just China or whatever. And that ironically, when they were playing an anthology downstairs from the theater they were playing in was Café Lumière by Ho Xiaoshen, which is exactly what he's saying, like slow, contemplative art house. Although I like that film too.
That's quite different from the vibe of NYAFF.
So the vibe of NYAFF from their foundation was, because they all met in through Chinatown cinemas, to the Music Palace and Rosemary and something, where they would see every week, and I used to go to these theaters, and every week you would see some crazy genre film, action, horror, whatever, and much more exciting and interesting than what you would see in Hollywood, generally speaking. So that's what they were after. However, I can't say that they didn't show something that was art house or that was contemplative or something. They did. And now, in the last several years, the Grady stopped programming probably around 2010, and the programming staff was trying to sort of shed the genre reputation, still now is, because still I think a lot of people think of NYAFF as a genre festival, but it's less so now. I think it's more well-rounded in that sense now, and that we do show art house and films that aren't necessarily exploding vampire girls and so forth. I mean, we still show that too, but not mainly.
If you ask this question, like what's your favorite Chinese film or what's your favorite Chinese movie to a Chinese audience and an American audience, you will probably get very different answers. Like, what do you think of this difference in taste between Chinese and American audiences?
Well, I think it's because we're only seeing what we're shown. So, for example, for me, growing up, so Chinese cinema was what? I mean, in the 90s it was Zhang Yimou, right? And Chen Kaige, maybe. The fifth generation. That was select films of theirs were seen, and I know that a lot of Chinese films that were seen here were probably not seen in China. What was seen, let's say in the 90s, what was seen by the general audience? I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Exactly. So that's, of course, you're going to come up with completely different answers because people are seeing completely different things.
Yeah.
Now, with the explosion of information in the media, I could probably find a movie that was shown in general theaters, like to a general, like mainstream audience in China in 91 or 92, something I would have never been able to see before. But at that time, I would only know Zhang Yimou, etc., whatever, fifth generation. And even now, it's still like, what is now, you have the Chinese art house cinema, and then the mainstream cinema that you see here. Long Day's Journey into Night, or Jia movies like Ashes, Purest Light or something. I don't know exactly how those are. I know they seem to be extremely well regarded in China, but I don't know what the general public thinks about them.
Like, I'm Chinese, like when I watch a Chinese film, like it's just a film for me, like, but I don't think about like Chinese culture in it. But like if like an American audience watch a Chinese film, like do you think, like for you, do you think about Chinese culture in these films, or do you just simply appreciate it as a film?
Both. Especially from my curatorial standpoint, because when I'm watching whatever Japanese film or Chinese film, I immediately react to how I'm being entertained. And then I start to think about other things like what kind of worthwhile messages are here. And then of course, that it's being a culture that I didn't grow up in, I do think about how does it reflect that culture.
Does NYAFF consider these when selecting films? Like, do you consider both Chinese audience and American audience?
Yes, well we want to have all audiences, we hope to have both Chinese and Americans in the audience. There are a lot of Chinese people in New York, so we hope they'll show up. But and then I think, to me, yes, I think part of the idea of having a festival that's specialized in a certain region, as in an Asian festival, is trying to reflect the culture as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Tangsu Paiku, that sounds good.
It's really good.
Any other non-Shanghai Chinese cuisine you really like or recommend? No.
Too many. I can recommend dumpling.
Is there any kind of Chinese cuisine that you can't get in New York that you miss?
Actually, you cannot get really good Shanghainese food in New York.
You haven't found one good Shanghai restaurant?
They're just very different from Shanghai. Well,